Ground Zero program is always live, loud and clear, every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on UBC Radio, Butebo FM, West Nile FM and Magic 100 FM, and live stream on YouTube. You can also listen to the repeated broadcast of UBC Ground Zero every Sunday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. UBC Radio, inspiring you.
Welcome to Ground Zero Season 2, a show that brings you in-depth discussion ranging from politics, health, finance, sports, and so much more. Ground Zero Season 2.
Hello dear listener, you're most welcome to UBC Ground Zero. We're broadcasting live on 98 FM, UBC Radio in Kampala. We're also live on clear 97.4 FM in Arua. You can also get us on 99.4 FM in Lila. You can as well get us live on UBC Butebo, the voice of eastern part of this country, on 96.9 FM in Mbale. We also live on 98.4 FM in Soroti. You can as well get us on 95.5 FM in Arua. We also connected live on another radio station, West Nile FM on 98 FM in Teso sub-region, Acholi, Lango, Karamoja and sub-regions, and all the northern parts of this country. We are also live and clear on another radio station, UBC Magic 100 FM. We're also streaming live on YouTube. You just put UBC Ground Zero and you'll be part of the conversation. Ampaire Amon Utega is my name. I am so glad that you have joined us wherever you are, those who are on radio and those who are live on online. We're going to discuss something special today, something that concerns everybody in this country, in the continent of Africa and the world at large. What you do here determines how the Europeans are going to live, the Americans, the Asians, and all the other continents who depend or which depend on Africa. And specifically in Uganda, we're going to talk about agriculture. We're going to talk about climate change. We're going to talk about our environment. We're going to combine all those in one word, which is soil. We're going to look at soil. We believe that soil is one of the things that concerns everybody in this world. Soil is the epitome of miracle, not just on earth, but in the entire known universe, where 87% all depend on it, including us, the humans. We come from soil, feed upon soil, and go back to soil. The same soil is affected by a number of issues and a number of things, including global warming, climate change, water shortages, deforestation, pollution, and all other things. In today's topic, we're going to discuss all things, not forgetting the environmental discussions worldwide. But there is one concern that all of us must engage in and have this solved. Because what we do on our soil determines the life that we are going to live thereafter. Until this problem is solved, then humanity will have a better life. We're going to look at the soil extinction, we're going to look at soil deterioration, and many other things. Because people believe that for soil to be agriculture, it must contain a minimum of 3% of organic content. Are we looking at how things are going to be changed or transformed by our leadership, or it is a concern of every Ugandan and African person? It is a concern of you and I and everyone that's listening to us right now. But why should this be a concern to us? The other day I was looking at the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, where it shared an alarming fact in their report, where they said that every year 75 billion tons of fertile soil is lost to land degradation. Similarly, 12 million hectares of land are lost every year to desertification and drought alone. This is an area that could produce 20 million tons of grain. In the same report of United Nations, the agencies have also brought forward that the world is left with agriculture soil for 80 to 800 crops. And 45 to 60 years, we're going to have these things deteriorating. 80% of the biomass insects have disappeared, and they are keeping to disappear every day. They have as well predicted that in 30 or 40 years to come, we are not going to be having insects anymore because they don't have where to depend. They depend on soil, which is deteriorating every other day and every other minute. In the studios of UBC, I'm so much glad to have been joined by the experts. I have Dr. Patrick Msinguzi, is the soil expert, and a privilege and honor to have you, sir, on your Ground Zero again. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
I believe this is not the first time we have had this topic, and have had you in this very discussion. We also have Nampamia Doreen, is the research associate from Kopia, Uganda Center. Most welcome, Doreen.
Thank you very much.
This is UBC Ground Zero. Ampaire Amon Ortega is my name, and we are discussing soil deterioration as a national concern. We are going to be looking at the remedies and innovations. Most welcome to UBC Ground Zero, and later on you're going to join the conversation on 776-511-426 is the number that you're going to call and be part of the conversation. Let's start from there. Doctor, you have heard from the people of Uganda, their concerns that they're raising in as far as soil deterioration and extinction is concerned. But first and foremost, you can first tell us who you are, where you come from, and your contributions toward the soil extinction and deterioration.
Thank you, Mr. Amon. My name is, as well introduced, I'm called Patrick Musinguzi. I'm coming from the Department of Agricultural Production, School of Agricultural Sciences, in the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, Makerere University, where I teach soil science. And I'm happy to be here to join this important discussion on soils. Actually, it is coinciding with what we all know. This week we have been celebrating the World Soils Day. The World Soils Day. And that celebration was on 5th December, on Monday. And celebrations have been going on through this week. So I'm really excited that we are here to share about the soils across Uganda. But more importantly, celebrate this year's theme, which was basically on soil where food begins. Very interesting. Soils where food begins, where me and you can actually survive and live every day and succeed in this world with food. So that's the foundation we are sharing today with you, and I hope that we shall all know more about soils and the contribution it's making to the world. Personally, as I've already mentioned, I've been contributing the soil area in relation to teaching. The academia, we do a lot of training of soil scientists at the university. We also teach students at different levels, masters, PhD, and also undergraduates. But also we do outreach to train people about this important resource on soils and of course its protection, its conservation, and its productivity. Thank you.
Most welcome, Doreen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amon. I'm called Mrs. Doreen Nampamia Waman. I work at COPIA. COPIA is Korea Program on International Agriculture as a research associate. We support farmers to produce crops sustainably. We support farmers and train them on how they can increase their productivity of the crops they are growing in different parts of the country while sustainably conserving the environment. I'm also a PhD student at Makerere University in soil science. So on the part of soil, I'm contributing both as a trainer, transferring the knowledge from the research, transferring knowledge from class to the farmers, and as well doing research specifically on soil organisms. That's what we call soil microbiology. How can we utilize these organisms to sustainably conserve environment, sustainably increase productivity, as we all focus on what we eat. But what we eat comes from those little things which are not seen by our eyes. So that's what I research about. Thank you, Mr. Amon.
Interesting. This is UBC Ground Zero, and we're discussing soil. Indeed, as you heard from the guest tonight, soil deterioration as a national concern, remedies and innovations. Let's start from there. Dr. People still, including myself, where is the? Can you help us draw the line between soil extinction and soil deterioration? Are they the same, or there is a bit of difference, Doctor?
Oh, thank you very much. Actually, that's a very wonderful question that we should all be concerned about. We are living in an environment today where our soils, especially I'll talk about Uganda. Yes, the world is also having many problems, but there is a very big concern about if, in case, our soils actually become extinct. But also, we're also getting concerned on the level of deterioration of these soils. Those are two concepts that are being of great concern for the whole world, especially the people who promote soil conservation. Now, we know as scientists that actually when you lose 1 centimeter of soil, it may take you 1,000 years to reproduce that type of soil. Remember, soil formation is a very long-term process that you cannot actually achieve in an overnight. You cannot achieve something in an overnight. It is something that actually takes many years for you to regenerate the soil. So imagine 1,000 years to generate about 1 centimeter. That's really quite a lot of time, and that's just it's just a very small layer. So as soil scientists, if we lose that soil, of course it means that many things are lost, including capacity to restore. That's why any loss of the soil, either into the water through erosion or soil of loss of the soil in all ways, as long as you're losing it from your field, from your farm, from your garden, from your home, you must be able to wake up and stop it. Because now, when you lose that soil, imagine replacing it. What method are you going to use to replace that soil? So, the issue of soil loss is very serious. In terms of, we don't want us to lose also to a level that we become extinct as people. Because if you don't have the soil, then you are heading for extinction, because that's where your food begins. That's where your life begins. That's where your future begins. So when we talk about deterioration, we are again concerned because we are the levels when we talk about soil organic matter, the levels are going down. That's what you mentioned, that 3% of soil organic matter, that's what we recommend. But if you test your soils of Uganda, they are below the 3% soil organic matter content. Then the nitrogen, how is it? The deterioration, the levels, how are they? They are going down according to the literature we have. Phosphorus, potassium, these are levels which are below. if you go in some places in the country, you really find levels which are really so below average compared. So now, if you have low levels of nutrients, of course, in 1950, when Uganda was with a low population, with few people, and the land, most of the land was under conservation, and the land was well managed, we used to have very good levels of soil organic matter, nitrogen, potassium. We used to have these levels well. But now, after all these years, now about 70 years since 1950, we have gone down in terms of these important components of the soil. And that's a big concern, because now, with the population increasing, we are about, I think, more than 45 million now, Ugandans. The population is rapidly changing. The pressure on the soil is increasing every second, and the pressure on our resources is increasing. The land is getting limited. People are now focusing on that soil to survive. Now, that is a big threat, both to losing the soil to depletion with this population and pressure on the soil, but also a big threat in terms of losing the soil through what we are calling that making us extinct as human beings if we don't have this. So I think you're aware, Mr. Amon, and maybe some of our listeners, that actually the pattern that is on now in terms of soil fertility depletion is likely to take us to either migrating. If you see, you've had people actually migrating from one region to another looking for better soil quality.
Yeah, true.
Why? Fertility depletion. Yes.
Interesting. Doreen, you've heard from the doctor, but why should the people of Uganda, Africans, and even elsewhere in the world be concerned about this soil deterioration, soil loss?
Thank you very much. We are looking at the main thing today, deterioration, and also soil loss that directly links to extinction. Looking at extinction means that we are losing the soil completely. The soil is going down into the lakes. It's going down into the oceans. It is being eroded to the rivers. It is going in places where we can never be able to find it. So that's a very, very big concern that we should be, that's the thing that we should really be concerned about. But also the soil that's remaining with us, it's being degraded. How does it get degraded? Every day we go out, plant crops and harvest. We eat. Then the following day we go again and plant crops. We also again expect to harvest without doing anything. Soil is like a person. If you look at soil, it's like a human being. When you feed, you get energy and you're able to do work. So soil, when we plant crops, the crops take up the nutrients and they make the crops the food we eat. So that means that every day we are harvesting, the soil quality is reducing. Once the soil quality is reducing, it means the soil is getting degraded. So as people, as we are looking forward to, like according to Dr. has said, the population, if you look specifically at Uganda, we are looking at 45 million. In 1950, the life expectancy was about 40 years for each person. The person who would live up to 40 years, people would celebrate. Right now, we are looking at 64 years, and there are new people being born. Recently, we are looking at 8 billion people in the world. So what does that mean? All these people need to feed from the soil, and that means the soil is getting degraded. The soil quality is reducing, the nutrients are reducing, and also that means that we need shelter for these people. Wetlands are being converted to shelter. Wetlands are being removed. Like we want to grow crops, we need more grains, like you stated in the introduction, to feed and live. All those things are contributing to the degradation in the soil. So we really need to work hard with the leaders. We really need to work hard with the academia, support more people, and as well teach our farmers teach our local population, our people, what does soil mean. When we were growing up, we used to study about maybe diseases. We got knowledge about the diseases. We got knowledge about how to increase production, but soil is still not given that needed training, that needed extension to the people who use the soil, to the farmers. Like, for example, Uganda is composed of more than 75% involved in farming. But these people, do they really know about what they are using to do farming? Do they really know about soil? So, to me, the soil degradation is really moving. It's really increasing daily, and it will continue to increase if we don't put in more effort. So we'd like to really also thank you for this program, that we can be able to talk and reach to many people to really understand this main food for our bodies. Thank you very much.
Interesting. This is UBC Ground Zero, and we are discussing soil deterioration as a national concern, remedies and innovations. I'm taking a very short break and I'm coming back. We are still continuing with our discussion. This is UBC Ground Zero.
This is Ground Zero Season 2. Stay tuned. We shall be right back.
UBC Radio informs its esteemed listeners about the changes in our daily programming schedule. This is due to the broadcast of the World Cup Qatar 2022 football tournament. Beginning on the 20th of November to 18th of December, where all games will be live on UBC radios. We are committed to serving you better. UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
UBC Radios brings you one-of-a-kind World Cup experience starting from the 20th of November to the 18th of December 2022. Don't miss all the goals, the misses, the analysis, and the best commentaries in your local language.
World Cup is in Qatar 2022. Doha, Doha,
UBC Radio, UBC Butebo, UBC Ngeya, UBC Totore, UBC West Nile, UBC Bundibujo, UBC Buluri, UBC Mega FM, Magic FM, UBC West, and Star FM have got you all covered for all the 64 games live. UBC Radios, inspiring Uganda.
Come to Doha, come to Qatar. World Cup is in Qatar.
Welcome back. Ground Zero Season 2 continues.
Welcome back from that very short break. This is UBC Ground Zero. We are discussing soil deterioration as a national concern, remedies and innovations. And I asked before we went for a break that why should soil loss be a concern to every person in Uganda, Africa and the world at large? Because as I said before, 75 billion tons of fertile soil is lost to land degradation. Similarly, 12 million hectares of land are lost every year to drought and desertification. That brings us to a question: what causes, or what are some of the causes of soil loss? Let me start with you, Dr. Msinguzi. In that we can learn how best we can protect the environment. If we know what brings about it, then perhaps someone will position him or herself to make sure that this problem is solved. The causes of soil loss.
Thank you, Amon, and our dear listeners. Yes,
is it not a worry that we are losing 75 billion tons of fertile soil?
No, it is a big worry. It's a very big worry, and I've already mentioned that actually if we don't act as users of the soil, as I've already mentioned, it is really very hard to restore. Very hard to restore soils to the level we don't want actually to keep losing soil to Mediterranean Sea. You know, when you lose soil here in Uganda, you are maybe working in your highlands of Kigezi or Mount Elgon, but once you lose that soil and it moves from that high mountains and it moves through the water systems to probably River Nile, of course it moves in form of sediments and then you find it actually to Mediterranean Sea, to the lake, to Egypt and those other destinations. Now, if you don't stop that, in fact, there is a president in USA who said that a nation which destroys soil, a nation which destroys soil, destroys itself. You know, if you destroy soil by losing it, that means you are destroying yourself. As simple as that. But it's not simple. It's a complex thing, because we really can come to an extinction. Now, if you look at the drive of this, we've already we already shared that actually we as individuals, there's a way we are mismanaging the soil in our farms. One of the driving factors is basically human-driven related activities. We as human beings who are actually supposed to conserve the soils, we are the drivers, because we are the one who are applying the poor management practices on these fields. So you find most of our communities or our farms, you find people actually they do the production without putting any trenches on the sloping lands. You find them doing production without putting up at least contour bands, putting up trees, putting up stop measures to this soil movement, soil loss. Now that's one of the problems. And of course, if you are doing farming in your field, also be mindful of the fact that burning of the residues. Most of our communities, when they produce, they want to burn every residue that comes out of his or her farm, instead of really preserving that residue and putting it back to the soils so that you retain that soil organic carbon in the farm.
So we destroy without knowing by burning the residues.
Yes.
In the name of cleaning our farms.
Yes, in the name of cleaning, and this actually not.
Someone says, Musinguzi is very smart. If you go to his farm, he has indeed cleared it all and burnt everything.
Yes.
Little did he know that he's destroying.
Yeah, because actually that organic matter, you cannot get it from anywhere. You cannot shop it. You cannot enter into a supermarket and get that soil organic carbon source.
If we don't burn it, how should we use it or preserve it, or to make sure that we don't destroy but we preserve?
Yeah, so when you harvest, especially that biomass harvest from the farm, please, you try to retain it on your farm, keep it on your farm, allow it to decompose, allow it to break down, and it enriches the soils better. It's a very good source of youth to ensure that the soils actually keep organic matter levels well. Then also we have a challenge of over-tilling cultivation. In many modern science now, we are promoting what we call conservation tillage. When you over-disturb the soil so many times, non-stop, that's why our soils have gone down. We over-till, over-disturb. I think, Mr. Amon and listeners, you could have heard about what we are calling conservation agriculture, where actually you minimize disturbing the soil. So you keep it intact, you just apply few advised amounts of herbicides, chemicals, but overall you try to avoid this. When we talk about climate change, loss of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, the concept of global warming, the concept of climate change, it starts from what we are doing on our farm. If you are over disturbing the system without taking care, and you lose these gases into the atmosphere, you bring a lot of challenges to the world. Now we have been promoting what we are calling conservation agriculture, to ensure that you avoid this disruption of the system. And of course, there is this problem of exporting nutrients. This is a silent thing. When you plant your matoke in Bushenyi, Mr. Amon, and you don't mind about the way you are actually that you're exporting to Kampala, that what we call nutrient exporting nutrients. Now, when you export nutrients to Kampala through the banana, through the banana peels and all other wastes that you carry on a big lorry to Kampala, there's what we call nutrient exportation. You export the nutrients. Now,
I've exported the nutrients from Bushenyi.
Yes.
Giving it to the people of Kampala.
Yes. And if you don't be mindful of the fact that you can actually over time, continuously, what happens? Potassium is so dominant in these banana crops. Now, if you continue to do that, what happens? You're extracting potassium from Bushenyi and exporting it to Kampala.
Should we peel the matoke before we export
That
them?
would be the best way. You leave some waste on ground. I mean, it's a small thing to think about, but it's very big, because over time, you're losing nutrients. And not only potassium, you're also losing other nitrogen, phosphorus, which go with these materials you're moving with. So that's just an example on banana. Many materials are being exported. And you've seen Kampala full of waste, organic resource-based waste in the city. Now, that is nutrient depletion. It causes nutrient imbalances. Why? A human way of doing things, exporting things from one place to another. And that's another big problem we are facing in terms of causes of nutrient depletion in our systems.
Interesting. Doreen, the causes?
Yeah, thank you.
Soil extinction, soil loss, soil deterioration. The doctor suggested that before we export the matoke to Kampala or even to Kenya or some other markets, we should first peel, in that we remain with the resource. The resource in this case is the manure, not what you're selling. What is your suggestion, and what are those causes that you have so far identified in your course?
Thank you very much. To add on that, I would like to start by asking a question to everyone listening. Who destroys this soil? Who causes this soil deterioration, this soil degradation we are looking at? If you critically look at the causes, we are all contributors. Each person, whatever activity you do in your small house, whether it's one room, whether you are even a visitor in someone's home, the activity you do there is a contributor of the soil loss, soil degradation we are looking at. How are you a contributor to that? That polythene you carry every day. You're walking around, you're moving in a taxi to visit, you throw out the window. You're throwing onto soil. Where you've thrown it, like we've seen, soil is composed of 4 components. We have the mineral matter, we have the organic matter, we have the air and water. And in that component, we have life in the soil. So if you've put the polythene, if you've thrown that polythene out the window to the soil, it means that where you've put it, the organism there won't breathe, the water won't go down. It means the organic matter, every other thing will end up being affected. So you're becoming the first person. So waste management, the way we manage wastes is one of the issues we have to really put much focus on. Like he talked about the exportation of nutrients. If you pass by the main dumping site, our area in Chitezi, you really see how the waste is heaping up into soil. It's like a mountain now. So that is like a small example of what we are doing. But what is composed in there, the polythene is in there. So if we can really also work on the policy of using degradable packaging materials, like it was initiated some years ago, it would really be important for our soils. When you're moving along the roads, if you move around the cities, you really start to wonder what will happen in the next years to come in case we don't do anything. Another part is another factor is overgrazing. How do we do overgrazing? Like, if you have land, there are particular number of animals that land can manage, such that the grass can regrow and then feed the animals. But if you find that you're having more animals than expected to be managed on that farm, so you find that there is what we call overgrazing. The grasses cannot grow to support the animals anymore. And then also, that means that we are exposing out the soil to other causes, like other agents like wind into erosion, then also the gases into the atmosphere increasing, contributing to global warming, then the soil erosion also taking out the soil to the bigger water catchment areas. Then another thing is the deforestation. We've had forests do a bigger role in management, in supporting our environment. So if we could also increase the energy in planting trees, and planting trees doesn't need to first have a program that plant trees do anything. A tree can be a fruit tree. You plant it, expect you eat maybe avocado, mangoes, or maybe you plant that eucalyptus. We need a lot of wood. We use a lot of charcoal, especially in towns and cities. So if we should also increase the planting of trees. If we plant trees, it means that that science is that the tree roots hold the soil in one place. So when the soil is in one place, we are maintaining our soil. We are getting wood, but also conserving our soil for the future use in case we need to use it for any other thing. Thank you very much.
Most welcome. Doctor, more often you've taught people how to test and know the type of soil that they have. But to a layman or to some farmer deep in Rukunjiri or deep in Koboko, how can I test the soil to know that this soil is fertile or it has lost its fertility? I need to change. Or my soil is deteriorating, I need to do something. Doctor?
Thank you, Amon, and our good listeners. Yes, actually, we are so much concerned about this factor of soil testing. And this is, thank you for raising it actually, Mr. Amon, because we know that Uganda is importing fertilizers, but also we have done some efforts to produce our own locally organic fertilizers. But you see, you cannot apply these inputs in your farm or in your garden without actually knowing the soil status. You need to know what's your status of the soil. So today we are facing a problem. You find farmers actually with the thousands of acres of land for large scale. You also find small scale farmers and medium scale farmers actually trying to do production for the crops we know in the country. Surprisingly, these farmers really take soil testing very seriously. Now, soil testing, we fully encourage it. And because now if you know soil testing and you know how much nitrogen is in the soil, your phosphorus is in the soil, your pH, the acidity, how is the acidity of the soil, the other elements we know, calcium, magnesium, even the micronutrients like zinc, iron, monobednum, manganese. If you have an idea, then you know that, well, I need to add this amount of fertilizers, this amount of nutrients, this amount of, or like now I know a place in Mbale where people were producing some maize, and maize was not doing, there was no proper growth. So people actually thought maybe it was juju or witchcraft, yet actually it was acidity. The soils were actually, the pH was extremely low and the soils were quite acidic. Now, how do you know that the soil is acidic and be actually beyond what the crop could actually, respond to? So soil testing, that fellow in Mbale had to inform us, and we did soil testing. Now, soil testing helps you to control how much fertilizer you're going to use. You're able to know whether your soil is actually deteriorating, our topic, whether it is deteriorating. At least if you know, then you can intervene. But also it helps you to know how much fertilization you're going to do in your field. So we do soil testing in many areas, especially in Makere. We have a whole lab.
Is there any technique you use, the heavy machines that you apply, or someone deep there in the village can be able, after listening to us right now, he can go to the garden and be able to test his soil?
Yeah, we have two way, actually 3 ways. One, we can bring the sample direct to our labs, what we call, we take it through what we call wet chemistry. Wet chemistry. Where you have to go through the labs. We have equipment here in our labs, and we have protocols, procedures that are only many times in our labs. But also, as a university, we do what we call the soil testing kit, which is about 250,000 shillings only. A soil testing kit. Now, that one you can take it as a farmer, but we prefer an extension officer to help you test your soil with a kit in your farm. But also we have now also modern technologies that we are calling spectroscopy, where you use dry chemistry, where you're able to test the soils with the modern equipment that scan the soil, and you're able to get some quick, tentative results that can help you make a decision. So the soil testing actually is just paramount, is important. It helps you in many, many things to boost your production on your farm.
And we have the traditional ways. I believe that you're a farmer, and perhaps before you went to the university to learn about the modern testing, you could have tried the traditional ways. Do we have some of them? Because I don't believe that everyone can have access to you or have access to this modern testing of soil. I'm looking at someone who is deep in the village but would have to be helped by this discussion.
Okay, that's an important question, Mr. Amon. Yeah, I think for our farmers, there are traditional ways. Even me, we used to do a lot of observations. I think the main key thing is to make critical observations about your farm. We know actually you can observe and see how your crop is behaving. It can produce some what we call symptoms, what we call plant nutrient deficiency symptoms, like the plant yellowing, the plant purpling, the plant getting stunted in growth, the plant struggling. You can observe. Now, when you see that,
it is after that you have planted that you have to monitor your plants.
Yes, you have to be a lot of observations. They help you to make a decision to know, hey, I'm doing badly here. I need to intervene. Like yellowing, you just get some, nitrogen now is missing. Purpling, phosphorus is missing. If burnt leaves, especially on the side margins of the leaf, probably this is potassium, which is a problem. So we know there, but that needs again some bit of information for the farmer to quickly. Even there are some natural plant indicators that farmers, actually those who know, they know. There are natural plants, especially plant indicators. There are some plants which grow in areas that are fertile. So if you have those plant indicating kind of plant, you probably think this is a good soil. So as a farmer, traditionally they know that a good soil has this kind of weeds or plant indicators. If it's a bad soil, even on the local, they will know this plant indicator suggests this soil is so bad.
I was going to tell you, how do you expect me to cultivate and plant 3 hectares of land, and then I wait to monitor the plants whether they are going to lose nitrogen or not? That will be a loss itself. Is there any indicator that I get before planting? Because I don't want to incur in that loss.
One indicator you can use actually is
that this soil may not be good for my maize, this soil may not be good for my matoke, even before I clear the land and I start planting.
Thank you, Amon. I think one best way for such a farmer is
the indicators of soil loss. I mean fertility loss.
Yeah, but if you have a history about that area, what we call the farmer history, the land use history, it gives, actually it's one of the best, because if you can't buy land now in, for example, Chiriandongo, if you ask the community there about how the soil has been behaving, the history, even if I don't do the tests, people will tell you that here this is how the soils are behaving, this is how the crop behaves. Now that history, that community perception, that integration with the what we're calling citizen science, that engagement can help you know more about your soils, and you can make a good decision whether you continue.
I've loved that citizen. You call it citizen science.
Citizen science.
But I'm looking at the situation where I've migrated from somewhere to this place. I've bought it, and perhaps my neighbors are far or are distanced. But also the history that I want on this very soil, they have no clue. They have no information. Because if I wanted to do cotton here, and they have no history of someone who has ever planted cotton, then I'm likely to have no good information. Is there any way I can tell as an indicator that this soil might fit for this and not for that, according to the weed plants that are there or according to the plants that I find there? I mean traditional plants, I mean the natural plants.
Thank you very much. I can add.
Yes,
on
Doreen.
that. We have plant indicators, and also as part of the plant indicators we have in weeds. When you reach the field and you're planning to grow certain crops, the status of weeds tells much about the status of the plants you will have.
Interesting.
In this case, I'm going to use an example of those people who clear forests. The area where they found a variety of weeds, here we are looking at diversity and composition. You have different types of weeds, different types of shrubs in a particular area. Most times if you put crops there, they do well. And in spots where the grasses are very stunted, even your crops end up stunted. Then another example is the anthill areas. The anthill areas, most times on the crops planted on anthills, they tend to do well. What is the reason? Like I indicated before, soil has a mineral component which has different minerals, which are the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, but we have what we call these micro elements, the molybdenum, zinc, sulfur. Those ones have also have a great impact on how the crop performs. So when ants are working, they work through the soil and mix those minerals, and that's why on anthills we usually see crops doing very well there. Then also these plant indicators, like he said, these signs that show on crops, the yellowing, the purpling, they also show on weeds. But you need the critical knowledge. Like we would say, my grandparent used to know this. They knew it through continuous cropping and learning. But now we don't have this time. We don't have that we don't want to waste years to gain the knowledge our grandparents gained. So we would appeal to the government, like the way they have veterinary officers, they have agronomists on stations as extension officers. If they could include a soil scientist and train these farmers in the trainings, like for example, now we have the parish development models, we have the Operation Wealth Creation, where people gather to collect money and to get money, to get the support. So during that time, if we could have trainings, train our farmers about these signs, these plant indicators, these signs shown by crops. Then we also have, like the way we have the Ministry of Health print out the signs of Ebola. Like now we've been having an Ebola outbreak. We print out flyers and distribute to people to really see in the small clinics down in the village. You find the signs of Ebola in a clinic. So if we could have, people are sensitized. So if we could have these signs printed out, like if you see your plant is like this, you should do this and this. Currently the fertilizer companies, those who do sales in fertilizers, entrepreneurs, they sell out fertilizers to farmers, but farmers don't know when to apply and when to use. But if they have these signs, like for example yellowing, stuntedness, you know that your crop is affected, but is lacking such and such nutrient. But also these signs are somehow similar to signs of pests and diseases.
I was going to tell you, because most of the times when we see yellowing of leaves of our plants, we tend to treat them as pests, and so we look for the pesticides.
Yeah, actually yellowing is more to do with the viruses which are transmitted by the different pests, but it also has to do with the nutrient deficiency. But when we have those flyers, we are able to integrate all that information, differentiate what the disease is. We put the step, the way they indicate. For example, I'm going to use the most current one, the Ebola one, fever. Fever is to Ebola and fever is to malaria. But because of the sensitization, people are able to separate. No, I have malaria, it's not Ebola. So we could also use this same knowledge, same message. We separate, we indicate you have deficiency if the signs are like this. If you go in the morning and check your plant, it is okay. At midday it is wilted. In the evening it is okay. Could it be, is it water stress? Because also these nutrients, the other component that is very important is water. Even if you have all nutrients in your soil, you have everything and there is no water, it's like you're doing nothing. These nutrients move through water to be able to reach the plant. If you look at how the plants feed, the nutrients mix in the water and they are able to enter into the plant roots and feed. So if your soil is dry, however good it is, it may not be able to do anything. So here I applaud the government program on irrigation and micro-irrigation that they are trying to promote right now, which is really good. So on the issue of the plant, if it is affected by diseases, in the morning you will reach when it is irritated, when you expected it to really be doing well. Then in the midday it will still stay the same, and in the evening stay the same. But if it is about the nutrients, you will see the leaves even carrying through the water effect, so you can separate. You can really be able to separate. But all this knowledge requires training.
Okay. Interesting. You talked about water in the soils. When soil lacks water, it is dry and it is not fit for the plants. But also, in some circumstances, I've heard more often from the farmers that when there is too much water, it is not also good for the plants. How best can we balance or tell that the water that I have in my soil is well balanced? Doctor?
Yeah, thank you, Amon. Very important area of discussion when you bring in water. Indeed, as she has mentioned, without water, then even your nutrients become, a white elephant.
When soil is dry, it is a disaster. When there is
yes.
much water in the soil, it is also a disaster.
Yes.
How should the farmer balance that?
So thank you. The listeners need to know that actually we get all the water currently from precipitation, from rainfall. And presently all the rain that we are getting is highly variable. We know climate change. I think you know that in most of our communities in Uganda, people don't know that actually, people know that rain is very unpredictable. Now, that is the main source of water for most of our agriculture systems in Uganda. So we have that challenge that when you plant your beans or your maize or whatever rice crop, you really don't know how the rain are going to behave in a given season. Now, of course, that precipitation, when we talk about soil water balance, precipitation and irrigation are our inputs in the soil. And then, of course, the outputs are normally the runoff. That water again runs on the surface. That water is stored sometimes in the soil. Some water is percolated down depth. Some water is lost through evapotranspiration. Now, if you don't have a good soil water balance on your farm, on your rice field, you get problems. Now, when it rains, it's very, very important for the farmer to contain and manage the moisture, the little moisture that has come. How do we maintain the moisture? You may have to do mulching. You may have to, put up some ways that you minimize runoff on the surface. You may have to really protect the soils and the water in the system, soil water in the system. Now, if it doesn't rain for the next 2 weeks or 3, remember, if you did the right thing when it rained and you protected and preserved the water, you can survive amid this climate change. Now, that's something we have also been training our farmers that please try to protect the little moisture that has come. Now, when it overrains, as you had raised too much water, when it overrains, it's another problem. Now, when there's what we call rain intensity. When it rains and then it rains for long, like you've seen in Mbale, there's a time when it rained at night for long and heavily, and people woke up with flooded environments around the towns of Mbale. Now, when that happens, it causes destruction, even to the crop. even to the environment. Even when you have put the fertilizers that night, all the nutrients are washed away and you lose all the nutrients. So if you have invested in 1 million in your fertilizer, probably you get 0. All the money is washed away. Actually, for me, I like valuing the nutrients form of the nutrients. When they are washed away, you have lost money. And our communities need to learn that when you don't manage your environment and you put 1 million for fertilizers and you lose it because of too much runoff or too much water, you lose money. You lose money. Now, we need to know that our communities need to optimize these things. Try to optimize water when it is there. The rain that has come, try to conserve the little moisture in the soil. If it is too much water, which is beyond us, again, you need to be mindful. That is what we call extreme event. You may not have control. But that one, many times, the best way is to do what we call disaster risk management. You have to be mindful that when there's too much rain, how would you respond as in terms of risk management? But Mr. Amon also and our listeners, you must know that when you have no water, there is irrigation. We have solar panels. We have solar supported irrigation systems now. We have also pump supported irrigation systems. So when you are too stressed, like the region semi-arid areas in Uganda, don't ignore the fact that there are irrigation systems. But again, Mr. Amon, in research in Makere, we are developing what we call moisture sensors, where you only apply water when you need it. But that's another story. Maybe we can discuss another day.
That is interesting. I hope you're enjoying the discussion. We must thank you for those who are on radio and online and you're following us. We're discussing soil, and we believe that it is a significant carbon sink, the largest water soak on the planet and the basis of all life. The 36 to 39 inches of topsoil on average around the planet is the basis of 87% of life on the planet. The body that you and I carry is soil. Without soil being rich and well, this body is very, very big, at a big risk, and every other life cannot be well. We're taking a very short break, and when I come back, I'm going to pick your calls and you tell us how best you are fighting and making sure that your soil retains its fertility, but also you're avoiding the soil loss. And when you have already lost this kind of fertility in your soil, I have the experts in the studios of UBC. They can tell us how best you can solve the problem. Those who are in Kampala listening to urban centers, I think you have a role to play and to educate our parents and those who are deep in the villages about the activities that they're doing to make sure that they don't deteriorate the soil, and we make sure that we avoid and fight this soil extinction. UBC Ground Zero takes a very short break. I'm coming back in a bit. I pray that you don't go away.
This is Ground Zero Season 2. Stay tuned. We shall be right back.
Don't miss UBC Radio Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. We host credible and relevant guests to discuss pertinent issues of national importance aimed at addressing people's concerns.
As a country, if we don't fight this vice of corruption seriously and with honest opinion without any bias, things will not be good for us.
UBC Radio Ground Zero, right here on UBC Radio.
UBC, ensure that the information you give out is factual but also objective, balanced, and complies with the legal and policy requirements for the media.
Ground Zero program is always live, loud and clear, every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on UBC Radio, Butebo FM, West Nile FM, and Magic 100 FM, and live stream on YouTube. You can also listen to the repeated broadcasts of UBC Ground Zero every Sunday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
Darling.
Yes, my love.
What do you think might be going on in our village?
It's the Ebola outbreak.
Is our family really safe from catching Ebola?
Yes, only if we follow the Ministry of Health Ebola SOPs.
Like what?
Like always wearing a mask while in public, washing our hands with soap, or sanitize after touching any surface. Avoid shaking hands while greeting, and social distance while in public. Then, report to the nearest qualified health worker in case you get symptoms like high temperatures, difficulty in breathing, vomiting blood, or bloody diarrhea.
Oh, thank you, my love.
There is an Ebola outbreak in our communities. Avoid catching or spreading Ebola by following the Ministry of Health Ebola SOPs. This is a message from UBC Radios. UBC, inspiring Uganda. It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody showed. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster. UBC, inspiring Uganda. Welcome back. Ground Zero Season 2 continues.
Welcome back from that very short break. This is UBC Ground Zero. We're broadcasting live on UBC at 98 FM in Kampala, 97.4 FM in Arua, 99.4 FM in Lida. We also clear on Butebo Radio on 96.9 FM in Bale, 98.4 FM in Soroti, and 95.5 FM in Arua. We also live and clear on 98 FM Western Nile Radio. We're also live and clear on Magic 100 FM. Apaide Amon Obtega is my name. We are discussing soil deterioration, a national concern, remedies and innovation. 776-511-426 is the number you can call and share your opinions on what needs to be done to make sure that we avoid and fight and end soil extinction and deterioration in Uganda and Africa at large. Ground Zero.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
A very good morning to you, sir.
I am called Opiro from Kampala.
You okay? Your concern, please.
I want to find out from the scientists
the
role of mycorrhiza in soil fertility management.
All right. 776-511-426. The number you can reach us on is 776-511-426, and you share your opinion. The reason as to why we're looking at soil extinction and deterioration is because we are losing 75 billion tons of fertile soil to land degradation. 12 million hectares of land are lost every year. Desertification and a drought alone. UBC Ground Zero. Also, I lost you. 776-511-426 is the number that you can call. In the studios of UBC, I have Dr. Patrick Msingzi, is the soil expert, and Nampamia Doreen is the research associate from Kopia Uganda Center. We continue with our discussion looking at soil. We have looked at causes of soil deterioration. We have looked at the effects, but how best can we join our hands to make sure that we avoid such errors and causes, and to be able to position ourselves to avoid such effects on our lives? Because as I said before, our bodies come from soil, for those who believe in the Bible. But also, if you don't believe in the Bible, you ought to know that our bodies depend on the same soil. Because of what we eat, this is where we stay, and everything that concerns to the earth. Doctor, you've heard from someone, and I was coming to that. Fertilizers and soil management.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Amon and the listeners. Yes, we are moving towards actually how best can we improve soil fertility and management of these soils. That's something as a way forward. Yes, we have talked about deterioration. We've talked about the fact that most of us have banks. We have soil as our bank. And we know now if you continually withdraw from your bank account, what happens? You without putting back money. You remain with zero money on your account. It's even you go to negatives. Sometimes nowadays, if you don't put anything, zero becomes negative in most of our banks. Now, the soil is in the same state. If you look at national soil status as our bank, we have been withdrawing nutrients, and now we are in negatives for some of the main nutrients. Now
we have no balance on our account.
Yeah, we are in negatives, especially in the soil status.
Okay.
Now we need to look at it seriously. Now that's why you're asking a good question, Mr. Amon, that how do we come in? Fertilizers, one of the key things that we need to look at. And some of these things, we have what we call both organic and inorganic fertilizers. And of course, the best, we all know that fertilizers are a bit available. Now they're expensive because of the war in Europe and Ukraine and Russia. But now, fertilizers is the main resource that me and you can actually look into to restore your soils. Now, you can have both biofertilizers, which I think we shall talk more about. Somebody raised a question about mycorrhiza. We have also what we call rhizobia. We have other what we call biofertilizers that actually can be used in the system. But also we have mineral fertilizers, which can include like urea, the ammonium phosphate, calcium ammonium nitrate, what we call CAN. Some of you have been using NPK. We have also other related fertilizers that are on the market that are now being blended. So you can have blended fertilizer now. Now we have fertilizers, and that's one of the causes of depletion in Africa. We are not using fertilizers. In Uganda, we're not using fertilizers well. In fact, the rate of fertilizer use is very low compared to the global standards, compared to other world, the rest of the world. So we need to really invest in a lot of this. Given that deterioration is now getting worse. If you put fertilizers, the other benefits, not only your yield, but also you generate what we call biomass, which I told last time that if you burn that biomass, so the more biomass you generate in a field with fertilizers and you put it back to the soil, the better for you. But if you're already with a very poor soil and you're not putting any fertilizer, that means you get a very poor biomass on your farm, and that means you cannot restore the soil well, because so it's what we call vicious cycle of a crisis of poverty, a vicious cycle. Now fertilizers are very, very central to improve the soil productivity, but also improve that residue that you need put back to the soil. So it's just something we need to think about in the restoration efforts. And
why do you think the people of Uganda have not picked on that idea of using the fertilizers as most countries have?
Yeah, it is a bit, I think, complex. Many people, you have the Uganda national anthem, which sings that for Uganda has good soils. It's also a perception from high levels. People still believe that Ugandan soils are very good. They are good. Even we sing in the national anthem that actually Ugandan soils
even when our soil is deteriorating.
Yeah. Now that's another problem. We need to be cautious. So we need just to be aware that increase a lot of awareness among our communities on accessing the fertilizers. But of course, the low use is because of lack of knowledge that our soils are bad, but also the lack of access. Our farmers cannot access some of these fertilizers because sometimes they are very expensive, and the usage is also another problem, because now we are promoting what we call right time application, right amount application, right type application, and right placement. 4 R's. Now, who knows that in our fields, those who are using fertilizers? Even the literal, which farmers can use, they don't know how to use it. They overuse in excess. You find somebody is struggling to buy urea or NPK, but he doesn't know why he's applying this amount. He can't calculate, he can't compute the exact amount you need to put. So there are some gaps there. My sister will add on biofertilizers as well.
Before Doreen comes in, do I really need to use the fertilizers even when my soil is good?
You can only know your soil is good when, Mr. Amon, you can only know your soil is good when we do some testing. You cannot feel comfortable. And pH, you may think there are many things we look at.
I thought I only rush to get the fertilizers if I have identified that I'm not getting what I was harvesting in my last seasons, or perhaps my plants have started becoming yellow and purple, as we discussed before.
Yes, I think the reality is this. You can only know that you need these inputs when you do some testing, but also most of our farmers have been observing the productivity trends over time. Now, when you're able to know that, you're able to quickly look for these inputs and you're able to intervene in your production problems.
Interesting. Thank you, Dr. Doreen. Before we had the fertilizers, people may think, even including myself, by the way, that we used to have good harvests, we used to have good soils, we used to have good crops and seeds. But now that we have the fertilizers, everyone is rushing to purchase them, from PK to what, to the strongest. Could it in any way have led to the deterioration of our soils?
I will come through the question that was asked by one of the listeners, which is the mycorrhiza, role of mycorrhiza in soil fertility management. In soil, we have soil life, which includes the mycorrhiza. We have the rhizobia, we have some bacteria, and then there is also some archaea. So these work together. They work together to protect the plant, to feed the plant. Then we also have the water and air. Like you talked about that when it's too dry, the plant can't grow. If it's too wet, the plant can't grow. The soil is composed of 50% water and air. And that percentage of 50 should be proportional. We should have some air, because plants and organisms are alive. They need air to breathe. But they also need water to survive, like we do. If you go into the pool of water, you automatically die. That's the same thing that happens to plants. If it's dry season, we continuously take in a lot of water to be able to sustain, to be able to work free. That's the same thing to plant. So those components affect the organisms. In this case, specifically on mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza is a fungus that forms a relationship, a symbiotic relationship with the plant roots, which we call the rhizosphere. That relationship is with the roots of the plant. The fungus gets carbohydrates. We can call them carbohydrates or sugars from the plant to survive. And in turn, the mycorrhiza or the fungus forms a network. That network reaches deep pores of soil and collects more nutrients. Then the fungus also releases some compounds that break down nutrients into easily absorbable forms by the plant. So the plant is able to get more nutrients to itself through the fungal networks. They enter through the fungal networks and enter into the plant root. The plant root or the root hairs, they don't reach as far as the fungus reaches. The root hairs are bigger than the fungal networks. And the fungus is able to make like a bed. And in that bed, the also, like, if it rains, it is able to hold more water. So in that process, it means that the crop, even if it is in dry season and it has that relationship with the fungus, it is able to sustain more days in a dry season compared to the crop which doesn't have which is not in any symbiotic relationship with the fungus. In this case, mycorrhiza, or it can be maybe rhizobia or any other fungus. Then also if you look at that network, you realize that we are having more carbon stored within the soil. So it is also helping on the carbon sequestration, which helps on the issues of climate change we are having right now. And these are organisms, these are life. These ones are affected by the chemicals. Chemicals, what do I mean by chemicals? Chemicals, we have fertilizers, we have pesticides, we have fungicides, we have herbicides. These are very important. They are like medicine, they are like drugs to the plant. They are needed so much. But again, they can also still cause death. Like we are prescribed drugs in hospitals when we visit. It is the same way these chemicals are prescribed by the scientists, those who understand how they should be used. So in this case, however much we are advocating for farmers to use more fertilizers, to use more herbicides, it should also be in a regulated form, or in a way like the person should have the knowledge on how these things are used. From their acquisition to their storage to their use, and also disposal in case they are not fully used, because they can also be very dangerous. And like we have mentioned, the population has been increasing and we've used most of these things. So this life in soil is no longer there. We are no longer having mycorrhiza interacting with plants like it used to do. We are no longer having the rhizobia, the ones that fix nitrogen from the atmosphere to the plant. We are no longer having them like we used to do. So that's why there are innovations like at Mackay University we are having the rhizobia. We apply to leguminous crops. Then there is also mycorrhiza. You can apply it maybe to coffee and maize to be able to bring back that life. And these are called biofertilizers. Bio means life fertilizers. Then the other ones are chemical fertilizers. These are made from chemicals to be able to bring the nutrients we require. So the biofertilizers are important, especially for management. And then also fertilizers, we should not wait for the soil to really be completely dead. A dead soil does not respond to fertilizers. So we need the soil still in its life form, when the quality is really not bad, to be able to maintain. If you plant and harvest, if you know you've planted maize and you've harvested 5 tons, next season, what are you doing? Because the other time you took out 5 tons and it all went to flour. It went to maize flour, it went to maize eating. So this season, how do you expect to still get 5 tons, yet you did not put anything? So we need these biofertilizers help on management, rejuvenation, restoration on the soil, and then on addition to the chemical fertilizers. So it would be better to integratively use both the biofertilizers and chemical fertilizers. And then also we have the increase in pests and diseases through climate. We even have new pests from other countries we are learning on. So we need all these things, but after proper prescription or proper training on how they should be used. Thank you very much.
Most interesting, and you're most welcome. Doctor, we have heard about the fertilizers indeed. But looking at how we are losing soil, it is really terrifying. 3 to 6% organic content can be alive, but most parts of the world, the situation is quite terrible. In India, 62% of soil has organic content loss of 0.5. In Europe, 75% of soil has an organic content less than 2%. 73% of the cropland has been degraded in the Middle East and North Africa. United States is not spared by 50% of the topsoil. Is there any means? Is there any way? Is there any solution we can regain these soils?
Thank you, Amon. You raise a very important comparison across the world, and of course in USA, Europe, Middle East, and many parts of the world, there is a real concern. And there are many initiatives that have come up, especially on soil organic carbon restoration. And actually they are talking about green carbon, meaning that if we don't, they are believing that if we don't store carbon in the soil, most of the carbon is actually more stored in the soil than any other system, and many times in water. So soil carbon storage is an issue, and it's one way we can restore. So there are global initiatives that are trying to promote improving our soil organic carbon levels, soil organic matter levels. And in Uganda, we are of course culprits in this. How do we improve soil organic carbon, soil organic matter? It is a big problem, Mr. Amon and our listeners. It's actually very hard, but it's possible. How is it possible? One way is, of course, we have already mentioned ways farmers can intervene and stop the losses. But more importantly, we have talked about biomass regeneration, restoration, to ensure that the biomass is not burnt. Also, we are saying there are other inputs that have been developed now. Members maybe could have heard about what we're calling biochar. Biochar is one of the inputs that is being promoted to improve soil organic carbon stocks in the soil. It's a very resistant material. When you put in the soil, you can keep the carbon to some level. But also we are really promoting the recycling of these organic materials. In Kampala, and our people in Kampala, what they are doing with the wastes? There is the very important component of what we call organic urban waste. Organic. That material you see being dumped in Chitezi and other places. We don't have very serious resources to recycle. We have not invested seriously and purposively to restore that organic material into compost. Very important point. I know there are some few efforts, but it's not really well managed. Even material waste collecting just this waste we have in the city, it's massive, but the collection is a problem. And that collection, if we put it in a very good composting process cycle, we can get very good material for composting, for compost that you can apply to our problem in our soils. But of course, the other thing which Mr. Amon and listeners need to know is on your farm, you really need to avoid a lot of things. Practice what we call conservation agriculture. Minimize over disturbing the soil. Don't over disturb as if you don't know that you are losing these. Carbon dioxide, it comes from the soil. When you disturb the soil, the carbon which we are talking about is transited into carbon dioxide, and it disappears in the atmosphere. So we need to preserve these materials in the soil. We need to apply most of the organic material back to the soil. But as also told you, fertilizer is an engine, because if you apply fertilizer, you get more biomass and you're able to put back the soil. So these are some of the few things that we need to think about. Of course, stop soil loss, soil loss, erosion. That's something, we are facing across the country, in the highlands of Mbale, Kigezi, in Rwenzori, in Kabale, in Kabarole. It's a big problem. And this thing is a threat to river water quality. The water in the rivers, we are getting very poor water now in the rivers. Now, as we talk about irrigation as a country, if you are losing rivers, water from the rivers, if the river volume is going low, where are you going to get water for irrigation? So there is what we call management of the landscape. We need to think about all these things. The more you lose the soil,
responsibility to make sure that we don't lose more soils.
I think it is everyone's responsibility, but of course we have leading ministries like Ministry of Agriculture, and Ministry of Fisheries, and Ministry of Water and Environment. I think they have to take leadership to ensure that this we stop. Actually, that's very important. Stop soil loss and restore what has been lost in terms of carbon, nitrogen, and potassium. Interesting.
Doreen, the ecological issues and the soil loss, soil deterioration and extinction are becoming everybody's concern. Europe is not spared. United States is a victim. Africa, of course, we are at risk, and many other parts of this world. Should we start thinking of electing leaders who are prioritizing issues like soil climate change. And to be specific, whoever fronts this campaign that we need to promote and maintain all the possible ways to make sure that we avoid soil losses then emerges to be our leader or our best candidate in this case. Let's discuss soil and leadership.
Thank you very much. Like they say, leadership begins from a person. You start by leading yourself. You start by leading yourself, and then you can transfer the leadership to other areas. The issue of soil degradation should be managed from the grassroots, from individual basis, up to the final state. But we also need the intervention of the government. How is it helping the people? In this way, it can support the trainings out to farmers, and then also for like during selection of these ministries and everything, consider people who really understand that soil is something important and you need to understand it. In other countries, you find they have a complete institute, soil science institute, soil science society, specifically studying the soil and managing the soils. Unfortunately, even the soil science course at the university, which was called the Bachelor of Agricultural Land Use and Management, they are planning to, it's not being taught this year to the bachelor student, which is really, really so disheartening for some of us that gain the knowledge through it. So if we could have those courses reinstated, or at least each university, because you say if we focus on the youth, those who are now training, then we are looking at the future. Because if we want to change the leaders we have now, it might not be sustainable. But if we really say, like, we have more than 27 universities in Uganda now, at least have a course unit and understand what soil is. We study very many things. When you enter university, they can teach you maybe communication skills or what. Understand maybe an introductory course to soil and understand it. If you mention the word soil, many people say, soil is soil. I've been seeing soil, we step on soil, we do everything. But they cannot understand exactly what soil is. So if we could have a course integrated in all these institutes, or it's good now the curriculum was changed. For high school and lower level classes, they are more doing practical courses. So if we could have in the agriculture part, if they are focusing on plant life, is there anything focusing on soil management or understanding what soil is? Because the moment you understand what soil is, it really affects you as a person to really do something to maintain it or to manage it very well. Thank you very much.
Most welcome, interesting. Doctor, the researchers have put it right that by 2050, our population is estimated to be over 9.2 billion, but food production will fall by 40%. As someone who is listening to us on radio and online, over 100 million people already suffer from hunger worldwide. That's equivalent to 2/3 of India's population, I think. It is well known that, and it is a fact that 95% of our food comes from soil. And we have soil that is left is only for 60 years. This is what you, the scientists, have told us, that the soil that we have remained can take us only for 60 years. But we are having children, we expect to have grand and great grandchildren. What is the future of Africa? What is the future of Uganda and this country? And you, the scientists in Uganda, how are you helping the people to make sure that they will live longer than what this prediction is about?
Yes, thank you, Amon. I think that's a valid question, because if you really don't think about the future, then probably I don't know where you are heading. So you raise a very pertinent question, especially with the fact that the soils, there are predictions that actually we shall lose a lot of soils. And the indicators actually now, I think you are aware that there is a lot of migrations across the country. Many times, sometimes because of that natural base depletion. When the soils are so bad, I mean, you look for better, greener pastures elsewhere. But also, most of our people are forgetting that as you move to a new, greener pasture, you're also not going to do much. You're also going to deplete that green pasture into extinction. Now, that causes a bigger problem, Mr. Amon and our listeners, that we move for better soils, that's why people are cutting down trees. I think you're aware, Mr. Amon and our listeners, that people are cutting down trees. They're looking for a fertile, a fertile land. And that's why people are encroaching on wetlands. Why? They are looking for a fertile environment with moisture, with water. Now, with this, it means there is pressure that where they have lived before, where they have been staying, where their grandparents have been doing production, the system, the land, the soil system is no longer supportive. Now people have moved to new areas. Now the issue is that's another threat for our future. As you move to a new area, also that new area is going to be depleted. Why? Because you are probably not doing the right thing to conserve that soil, to preserve that soil, and promote productivity in a better way, in a more recommended way. Now, me and you, we need to be concerned, and listeners, we need to be concerned about the future. As I already mentioned, that a nation which destroys itself, of course, a nation that does not preserve soil destroys itself. Now, as a country, it's very important that we start right now prioritizing the issue of soils. We try to conserve the soils. We try to put strong policies on soils. We try to promote it among all the children, the young people, that the soils actually getting poor, they are getting degraded, they are in low levels, and the need for us to conserve the little that we still have and conserve the little that we have. Of course, with the future, we the only way to survive in the future, the way I see as a person who has been in this area, is to also prepare for better technologies. Some of these technologies could include blended fertilization, where you have to blend the fertilizers, be more exact on what you are putting in terms of blending different nutrients. Invest so much in recycling of nutrients. Invest in these things I've mentioned in the urban areas where waste is too much, even in the villages where they are not composting. Stop burning of residues. That's another problem. And stop these losses. Conserve the soil in the land, in the landscapes, those highlands, those sloping lands. Conserve, stop the runoff, minimize the runoff. Otherwise, if we're able to think about all these things, and our communities understand why this is important, the future probably we could survive and move on.
Interesting.
Thank
Innovations. Doreen, let's look at some of the innovations for you who have gone to school specifically on the same cause. How can you help the farmers who are, by the way, behind the production of the food that we eat every day? Because when you have food on your table, you shouldn't forget that it's someone who was behind doing all the activities. But we have seen that 74% of the farmers are already frustrated. To take an example, I was reading the news last time that 3 people, is it in every month or every year, the lucky farmers commit suicide in India. And you know the main reason? Many farmers have become entrapped in various cycle of debt. They have to borrow more money for chemicals in terms of fertilizers, the crop yields, and the incomes are declining every year. On top of that, they have crop losses, and some years due to the drought and climate change, of course, and many other reasons. But you who have gone to school, you who are already the experts, how or what are you bringing in terms of innovation to help the farmers down there who are uneducated, to make sure that they are not frustrated and they don't commit suicide?
Thank you very much. The issue of low yields due to soil degradation, which translates to low incomes and poverty, is a collective challenge which requires collective efforts for its management. I'll use Makerere University as an example. There are so many innovations that have been done there, starting with the soil testing. Soil testing, like he stated, was using the big machines transfer the soil from northern Uganda to Kampala for testing. But now you can get the kit and understand what is in your soil and do what is necessary. That is one of the innovations we have. And then the other method of scanning, you just scan your soil and understand what is there, and then from there you decide what to do next. The other thing is using the biofertilizers to maintain, to prevent, let me use the word prevent some of the effects. We don't want to use so many chemicals. Using chemicals is another area, but we don't want to continuously use and then come to a stage where we cannot do anything. For example, in some countries, they promoted use of chemicals and use of fertilizers, extensive use of chemicals and use of fertilizers, and soil turned into sand. So you find that you have like sand in your hands and you cannot grow any crop. So we need to use integratively, like fertilizers and biofertilizers, and then also other cultural methods. Crop rotation, don't grow one single crop continuously. Don't grow maize from 2000 up to now 2020. You're only growing maize on your area. It is not sustainable. Mix in some crop, groundnuts, let the land rest. Rest your land for a certain period of time. Like also in the Bible, it is indicated. God is the one who created this earth. But he told people, grow for 7 years and let your land rest for 1 year. So that after that 1 year, you'll be eating on what you kept for the other years. So farmers should learn to save for themselves. In this case, we are not going to save the crops like you store your crop. We have so many pests now. Learn to save some money on the side and know that this year I've been planting maize for 2 years. The next year I'm not going to plant maize. So I'm going to save maybe 2 million or 1 million. This is what will feed my family as I rest my land and plan to start planting again. Then we have the issues of climate change, which we are facing right now. We are not so free for, like all other countries are struggling with climate change. Uganda is also being affected. Even right now, all people expected it to be shining. This should be a dry period, but we are affected by it is raining, and heavy rain is not simple rains. So everyone is worried. Even when you have planted and expecting the season to move in a certain way, it is not moving in that way. But there is research going on at Makerere University. How do we integrate climate change? Because it's also a new thing. So if also the government can put in effort and support some of these projects, and also support some of these projects, breeding crops that can survive in these conditions, these changing conditions. However much the conditions are changing, the crop is able to survive and give you yield. We have new varieties already from government agencies like Nile. There are new varieties. We have new varieties. Makerere, they have produced new varieties. We have animal breeds, new ones. You get a lot of milk even in the changing climate. So we are on good track. I can say we are on good track, but we are not yet there. all these things are still in the institutes. They are still at Makerere University. They are still in Nile. So the farmers are not getting these things. So we need support. We need help on how these innovations reach out down to the farmers. Thank you.
Interesting. The time is not really on our side. Doctor, I wanted to engage you on something that I could not forget. Certain or some soils are good for some crops. Is that true?
Yeah.
But to some areas, you'll find that crops that yield in Ntungamo, western parts of this country, are not the same crops that yield best in Gulu, northern parts of this country. But when someone in Gulu tries a certain crop on his field and doesn't yield, perhaps will be mistaken to say, my soil has lost fertility. How do you advise our farmers to know that the soil that you have might fit for certain crop type, and so you should not apply all the other chemicals, because if you over-apply the chemicals, they may even destroy that fertility that would yield for that very crop?
Okay, thank you. I just want to say that we Uganda has very many soil types, and that's something again people don't know. We have soils varying from the north to south to east to west, and that science we have it as a university. And even we have the soil map of Uganda, but it still needs to be worked on to update it. It's at a poor resolution currently. We need to work on it. But in relation to your question, we do what we call suitability assessments for the crops. And that means suitability means we look at the environment, the land environment where you're going to plant, and also look at what we call the crop requirements, the land use requirements. So we do what we call suitability assessment. Now, most of our farmers don't do this work. We don't do the suitability assessment. So they just do the kind of culture. You just plant, you try. But the reality is some soils will not support some crops. And of course, the environment, the climate, there are many things that may fail your crop. Now, in reality, when we are to promote production in many areas in Uganda, let's check so that we don't mess up. And of course, as a nation, we must be mindful of the fact that some soils are really so bad. They are shallow. Others are very deep. Others are totally deficient of phosphorus. Others are actually a threat even to containing the moisture in the soils. Now, we know all these things, then when you put the crop or your seed or whatever it is, that's why as the plant breeders are developing new varieties, it's very, very important that they include the environment soil evaluation processes to see whether these varieties we are producing will actually fit, even with scientific data, with evidence that actually they will fit in these environments. Or else you go and plant your beans in Karamoja or your maize variety in Karamoja, and the crop does not give you the best yield which we would want. So suitability assessment is important. And of course, we as Makerere, we are innovating also in these areas. Mr. Amon and listeners, we are promoting this integration. We are actually developing what we call fertilizer recommendations, where we recommend for every crop, like we have developed one for banana, for maize and rice. We can give you the recommendations if you follow up with us. But also we have been promoting what we call profitable, cost-benefit based crop production. You need to look at what we call a chibaro. You compute how much you are putting in, how much you expect, and do the computation. The president normally talks about a chibaro. You have to count. You have to compute. That's something which we are failing, most of us, Mr. Amon. And I think we need to start computing on ground. If you're going to plant, if I'm planting rice, it's not the same as maize. They do have different profitability margin. And that's where our communities are failing.
Interesting. We may not go beyond this very minute, even when we are still having this interesting and transforming discussion. Let me get your way forward and last comment on this as we end this show. Doreen, your last comment.
Thank you very much. My last comment is a call to every person to understand what soil is, and what their contribution could be with the environment you're living in. What can you do to preserve this soil for the future generations, for our children, for our grandchildren, and the people coming to live? And then also encourage people living in cities and in smaller areas to try vertical farming. Every home releases wastes every day, which are degradable, which can be able to be soil if put into vertical farming. Thank you very much.
Most welcome, Doctor.
Thank you, Amon. I think thank you very much, and thank you all listeners for joining us. We're really proud because this week was a World Soils Day, and UBC was able to invite us. But as we go forward, we want to encourage government to make soil a priority, a real priority, and as a foundation for anything we are going to do to transform this country. But also, I want to encourage us to really ensure that we train and build capacity of extension officers and the users of the inputs, fertilizers, that everyone in the country should do something, wherever we are, to ensure that the soils are preserved, they are protected, so that we all enjoy for the future and for today. Thank you.
Most welcome. That brings us to the end of today's discussion. As you heard from the discussant and the guests in the studios of UBC today, dear farmer, don't wait for that soil to get the last point or to be dead, for dead soil may not respond positively to all fertilizers. And don't disturb soil, because if you over disturb soil, soil will also disturb you. Don't plant the same crops season after the other. Make sure that you keep on changing, and as well you can give that soil a break, as it is said in the Bible according to one of the discussant. Test your soil first before you lose hope, and start applying different chemicals, which will at the end of the day make it deteriorate and worsen the situation. And I also call upon Makere to get on your feet, and also to teach and sensitize the people of Uganda, especially the farmers, and how I wish you work on that soil map as you mentioned, and also soil suitability, and you tell farmers what they can cultivate, where and how and when. And in the end of the day, you'll find that we have helped the farmers, we have helped also ourselves and the people in Africa and the world at large that feeds on Africa. And also to government, lastly, make sure you make soil a priority. This brings us to the end of our show. More programs are coming your way on West Nile Radio, on Butebo Radio, on Magic 100 FM, and UBC Red on the Journey with George Ngobi is coming your way. I thank you so much, the team that I worked with, and to you, the guests, for sparing time to sensitize and educate the people of Uganda. In the studios of UBC, I had Dr. Patrick Msingzi, is a soil expert from Makerere University, and also Nampamia Doreen is the research associate from Copper Uganda Center. We've been talking about soil deterioration as a national concern, looking at the remedies and innovations. Ampaire Amon of Tega is my name. For God and my country, allow me to sign out.
That was Ground Zero Season 2, a production of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
UBC Radio informs its esteemed listeners about the changes in our daily programming schedule. This is due to the broadcast of the World Cup Qatar 2022 football tournament. Beginning on the 20th of November to 18th of December, where all games will be live on UBC radios. We are committed to serving you better. UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
UBC Radios brings you one-of-a-kind World Cup experience starting from the 20th of November to the 18th of December 2022. Don't miss all the goals, the misses, the analysis, and the best commentaries in your local language.
World Cup is in Qatar 2022. Doha, Doha,
UBC Radio, UBC Butebo, UBC Ngeya, UBC Totore, UBC West Nile, UBC Bundibujo, UBC Buluri, UBC Mega FM, Magic FM, UBC West, and Star FM have got you all covered for all the 64 games live. Ha ha ha! UBC Radios, inspiring Uganda.
Come to know how come Katara. World Cup is in Qatar.
Darling,
Yes, my love.
what do you think might be going on in our village?
It's the Ebola outbreak.
Is our family really safe from catching Ebola?
Yes, only if we follow the Ministry of Health Ebola SOPs.
Like what?
Like always wearing a mask while in public, washing our hands with soap, or sanitize after touching any surface. Avoid shaking hands while greeting, and social distance while in public. Then, report to the nearest qualified health worker in case you get symptoms like high temperatures, difficulty in breathing, vomiting blood, or bloody diarrhea.
Oh, thank you, my love.
There is an Ebola outbreak in our communities. Avoid catching or spreading Ebola by following the Ministry of Health Ebola SOPs. This is a message from UBC Radios. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Blessings to the Almighty God that I found you. See, you captivate me. You're the only one that can satisfy me. Kawoga kumachako salila koka chumbani. Yeah, kama ya kuunda wabula, baby you're woman. You're my woman. Kalosa kukumachako salila koka chumbani. Baby wangu you're so yummy, 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 baby. You're so yummy, 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 baby, yummy, yeah. I wanna love you, Zamankulisa. I swear, Neta Bachimani Titevankolera. Uchiba your bestie, you're my bestie. Uchiba your testy, you're my testy. Baby, you're a singer, go get that. Whoa, you're the only one that can comfort me. You're the only farmer in my garden, baby. Baby, you're a singer, go get that. Oh, no, that mercy. You're so yummy, 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 baby. You're so yummy, 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 baby. Call paparazzi bakube photo. Mami, toyambela mungoyo zahara toto. Baby, nakuzena mugwano ngani na pogo. Echango ya balia majiba muni ankoko. Baby, uchiba cha bestie, you're my bestie. Uchiba cha testy, you're my testy. Baby, you're a singer, go get dala. Whoa, you're the only one that can comfort me. You're the only farmer in my garden, baby. Baby, you're a singer, go get dala. Oh, the mercy. You're so yummy, 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 baby. You're so yummy, 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 baby. Yeah.
Darling,
Yes, my love.
what do you think might be going on in our village?
It's the Ebola outbreak.
Is our family really safe from catching Ebola?
Yes, only if we follow the Ministry of Health Ebola SOPs.
Like what?
Like always wearing a mask while in public, washing our hands with soap, or sanitize after touching any surface. Avoid shaking hands while greeting, and social distance while in public. Then, report to the nearest qualified health worker in case you get symptoms like high temperatures, difficulty in breathing, vomiting blood, or bloody diarrhea.
Oh, thank you, my love.
There is an Ebola outbreak in our communities. Avoid catching or spreading Ebola by following the Ministry of Health Ebola SOPs. This is a message from UBC Radios. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
UBC Radios brings you one-of-a-kind World Cup experience starting from the 20th of November to the 18th of December 2022. Don't miss all the goals, the misses, the analysis, and the best commentaries in your local language.
World Cup is in Qatar 2022. Doha, Doha,
UBC Radio, UBC Butebo, UBC Ngeya, UBC Totore, UBC West Nile, UBC Bundibujo, UBC Buluri, UBC Mega FM, Magic FM, UBC West, and Star FM have got you all covered for all the 64 games live. Ha ha ha! UBC Radios, inspiring Uganda.
come to Doha, come to Qatar. World Cup is in